chaos in chief. Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. President Donald Trump surrendered on this day just hours after launching a trade war against Canada and Mexico. The retreat came in the midst of a U.S. stock market meltdown, literally seconds after M&T Bank rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. The Dow then plunged over 480 points, and after 34 minutes of trading, the Dow had dropped 610 points, or 1.37%. The anxieties that Donald Trump sparked with his tariff threats were evident on CNBC.
As I said, there's a market sell-off literally happening as we're speaking, and so I want to get there with you just to understand what's going on, even inside your own firm, as you're thinking about it this morning.
Wow. It's a much shakier ground that we're treading on.
But 20 minutes after that headline, Trump halts tariffs on Mexico as it rushes troops to border. Mexico agreed to rush 10,000 National Guard troops to the border to strengthen efforts to block the flow of drugs, especially fentanyl, coming into the United States. Earlier, one of President Trump's top economic advisors had hinted there was room for negotiation.
There have been a heck of a lot of talks over the weekend. I've been in the White House for most of the weekend, and the thing I can say is that I think it's totally 100% being miscovered, this story. What you need to do is go back and read the executive order where President Trump was absolutely 100% clear that this is not a trade war, this is a drug war. There are perhaps 100,000 people last year that died of fentanyl, and the fentanyl is coming in across the Mexican and Canadian borders.
According to U.S. government reports, most of the fentanyl is coming from Mexico, and less than 1% is coming from Canada. And Canada has already boosted border security to try to cut that down even more. So why the threatened U.S. tariffs on all Canadian goods? Well, social media is filled with claims that President Trump has been trying to belittle and damage Prime Minister Justin Trudeau ever since Melania Trump said she was smitten with the Canadian leader and seemed repeatedly to gush in his presence. Publicly, President Trump has accused Canada of being unfair and taking advantage of the United States. Never mind that Trump himself, in his first administration, negotiated and approved the current U.S. trade deal with Canada. In any case, over the weekend, Trump announced the tariffs and acknowledged they would cause U.S. consumer prices to go up.
We may have short-term a little pain, and people understand that.
Canada hit back almost immediately, announcing its own 25% tariff on many U.S. goods to go into effect starting tomorrow.
We don't want to be here. We didn't ask for this. But we will not back down.
Other Canadian leaders, even rivals of Trudeau, said the Trump tariff threats had infuriated and united Canadians.
The whole country is behind the retaliation the Prime Minister has announced. So now we are going to tax American exporters who are trying to sell us stuff. That means Americans are going to lose jobs. So this is really, it is self-mutilation. America is hurting itself. We think that it is utterly crazy, and we're also really angry at you.
Polls found that most Americans also thought the tariffs didn't make any sense.
Canada, China, and Mexico, the support is 38%. Now, you don't have to be a mathematical genius to figure out that the 51% opposed is higher than the 38% support. Americans are saying no when it comes to these Trump tariffs. There have been some things that Trump has perhaps done in his early days that are popular. I've pointed those out. But this, my dear friend, is not popular at all.
Whether it was the public polling or the global market crash, by late Monday morning, the Trump White House seemed willing to cut a deal and retreat. The agreement with Mexico caused the Dow Jones Industrial Average to rebound by a few hundred points. Investors and analysts around the globe then quickly turned their attention to talks between the Trump White House and Canadian leaders. Some of the most intense pressure on the Trump administration to back down has been coming from American manufacturers who say the Trump tariffs on Canada and the retaliatory Canadian tariffs on the United States would cost American manufacturing more than $144 billion.
I represent manufacturers in the United States. We want to see manufacturing grow here. But that means we've got to have the right conditions, the right tax policies, the right regulatory policies, and anything that adds to the cost of doing business in the United States makes it more difficult to invest and hire and raise wages.
Now, never mind the impact of tariffs on U.S. manufacturing, American consumers would also feel the tariffs on Canada immediately.
Canadian crude exports will have a smaller 10% tariff, but experts say even that is enough to add 15 to 25 cents a gallon to the cost of gasoline for U.S. drivers.
As the Trump talks with Canada and Mexico continue, a closer look at Trump's initial deal with Mexico proves that Trump, in fact, caved. In her statement, Mexican President Sheinbaum said the United States is committed to working to prevent the trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico. Not illegal trafficking, trafficking. Mexican leaders have long said that the availability of guns from the United States is a primary driver of drug and gang violence in Mexico. Of course, President Trump's statement on the deal to suspend the trade war with Mexico said nothing about a U.S. commitment on guns. Quote, I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. A few days ago, Donald Trump claimed he was not looking for Mexico to do anything. Quote, we're not looking for a concession, Trump said, which means Trump accepting a concession now is actually Donald Trump backing down. Did Donald Trump back down because of the new public polling or because he was crashing global markets and didn't like that? Well, no matter what the reason or reasons, President Trump has just reminded the world that his approach to negotiations is to make wild and crazy personal threats, create instability, and then perhaps back down, at least in part, once it is clear that real damage is coming to him. Over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal conservative opinion page described Trump's bullying behavior as the dumbest trade war in history and said Trump will impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico for no good reason. Indeed. By the way, Democratic House member Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez keeps ripping the Trump administration and just delivered one of her most remarkable speeches to date.
We stand here just 2 days after President Trump gave unconditional pardons to violent criminals who attacked our nation's capital on January 6th. And these are the people who want you to believe, who want us to believe that they're trying to, quote unquote, keep criminals off the streets. When they are opening the floodgates. I want the American people to know what is in this bill. Because in the guise and in the wake of tragedy, we are seeing a fundamental erosion of our civil rights in this bill.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular from Jeff, who wrote, we need all Democrats to grow some guts like AOC. I hear you. I look forward to reading your comments about President Trump crashing global markets with his chaos and then trying to clean it up. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.